Welcome to Drafting Out Loud, where today we're going to look at the underdog market movers. And let's jump right into it with the underdog platform values to start. These are comparing to DraftKings. And this list hasn't changed a whole lot. Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow ended back up on the list. They had got knocked off by like Shedeur Sanders last time we looked at the list. At the top, we still have DJ Moore and David Montgomery, who are not moving as much on underdog anymore, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Maybe David Montgomery was like 72 or something like that underdog. DJ Moore was like 65 on underdog, I think. Now they're 64 to 71, but still great values on underdog. I think that David Montgomery makes sense at that click, and DJ Moore, I guess, does as well, considering how much different they are. And I think they're better values on underdog, just not only based on ADP, but based on their player profiles, as we've discussed. Kenneth Walker not moving up nearly as quickly on underdog. So your chance still to get him before he gets to that 12, 13 click. I think I see him in every draft I've done drafted before 19, basically. So I'm surprised that still is ADP right there. Zach Charbonnet has been a value consistently on underdog compared to DraftKings. I think this is something that you can more take advantage of if you're drafting on DraftKings versus something to take advantage of on underdog, meaning let someone else take them. If you can get them sliding past 148, maybe there's a reason to take him on a Seattle team. He probably has more value today versus yesterday because they haven't taken a running back that is really going to threaten his role. Emmanuel Wilson, I think, is an interesting pick, but I think most people would probably assume that Zach Charbonnet keeps the starting role when he comes back, assuming he can kind of make it happen. Parker Washington has been on this list since the beginning. He used to be number one on the list. He's no longer number one on the list. And things have gotten muddied there since Jacksonville has all their receivers still. That being said, there are people that are high on him based on what he did at the end of the year, as we talked about. So I do think he's a player to grab on underdog. And he is falling a little bit on DraftKings compared to where he was before. He was like pick 55 or something like that. So becoming a little bit of potentially a clickable pick on DK and definitely someone on underdog that you could probably take. And so there you go. We got next Wan'Dale Robinson. And he is no longer on the Giants. He is on the Titans. I guess that hasn't, I'm not sure if that hasn't updated yet or if my stuff's not updated. I'll have to check at that later. But he's on the Titans now. And he's been a value for most of the time on underdog relative to DraftKings. And I don't think there's something to really take advantage of here a whole lot. He's a PPR scam for the most part. And so he should have a lower ADP like the 86 on DK and a higher 103 on underdog. So draft him if you want him, but I don't think there's much to do with that one. Rashee Rice has been a value for most of the time here on underdog as well, relative to DraftKings. Risky pick. If he plays, they'll pay off. Colby Parkinson is falling in all drafts, I think, since they signed Higbee as well. They had that three-headed monster. He's a value here on underdog. And one thing I did in one draft, which I think is an interesting play, if you need it, is to take like the Parkinson Ferguson combo or something like that and get like a two-headed monster tight end where ideally one of them is kind of hitting your lineup on a regular basis. Josh Allen, I think he was in the 30s, so he's now at 29.8 on underdog, still a value relative to DraftKings, and he gets to become a more interesting pick the further down the third round you get, and the other bets become a little bit more risky. Colston Loveland is a value on underdog here as well, and I like the Colston Loveland click. I think he was getting targeted a whole ton in Chicago. He could be kind of your Kelsey before Kelsey was being drafted in the first round type of thing, or Mark Andrews before he got drafted really high, or like one of those two players basically. And he could be the number one tight end on the board at the end of the season. Now, maybe not as well. So, drafting these high-end tight ends is always a risky bet. One thing I'm toying around with is how much do you take him at like this 45 click versus do you try to force him on the board and get a little more unique and get more value with him by trying to get him at the early fifth round versus taking him at the late fourth round. And maybe there's something to look at there as far as where the other tight ends went and stuff like that too. Christian McCaffrey is a value. I don't know how much you can take advantage of this, first round pick and all. Romeo Dobbs is a value on Underdog at 95 on DraftKings. That just seems a little rich. Is he going to be a target PPR scam on DraftKings? I don't think so. So I don't know why they aren't a little bit closer. I think that's just the hype. There's also some risk on that one as well, in that what if New England does grab another wide receiver? Jaylen Waddle just got traded. So maybe we'll talk about that at the end as well and see, where my initial take is on that. Not that you should go rushing to judge it based on my take. I'll probably listen to other people and then see what the market does as well. Joe Burrow and Matthew Stafford make the list again. And finally, Matthew Stafford is getting close to pick 100 here. Still not a good pick, in my opinion, but he's getting closer to being a good pick, I guess, if he just keeps on rising ADP-wise into the hundreds. And Joe Burrow here at 64. We did a video earlier on what if you draft Jamar Chase. I think Joe Burrow makes a lot more sense in the 70s, around the next round, basically, versus in the 60s here. Let someone else kind of take these players and not get the value. You wait for the opportunity to get the value on those players, in my opinion. Next, we have our ADP risers, and Darnell Mooney rising up the boards does not make sense to me. Like, why was he going later if now he's going to go earlier? I keep on seeing him go easily like in the 190s. So getting him at 213, I think, is almost impossible in most drafts. And I don't know how much value, like, take him. Not a bad pick. I guess he's competing with Slayton for the number 2 wide receiver over there on the Giants now. I just don't understand why he's rising. I don't think this spot is, it's not the worst spot he could have, but it's definitely not like some amazing spot either. I don't think so. If you have a correlation, grab him. And it makes sense that maybe he's going to start rising over some people, like some of the fallers as well on the other side. I am a fan of him, so I do think he's a pick, at 200. I just don't understand why he's rising compared to where he was before. I was trying to grab him in the last round or second to last round of the drafts before he signed. Chris Rodriguez all the way up to 169 now and still rising. He's actually looks like on this chart, the biggest riser for the week at 27.74%. Some people predict Chris Rodriguez to be the number 1 running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars or play just a very significant role. So I do think it makes sense to take him. I keep on seeing him getting drafted like in the 130s. I'm just waiting for the opportunity for when he falls and getting him there. I think if you take him at 130, you're all the juices squeezed on that one. Pacheco is rising here a ton now, or has been rising a ton. He's the second largest riser here. And a lot of risk on this one as well. And I see him going earlier also. Again, if you can get him here at the 180s, maybe it makes sense. But I wouldn't be trying to grab him much earlier, I don't think. That being said, I do like someone like Chig, who's also in the 180s here, ahead of Pacheco. I think maybe even Emmanuel. I mean, I think maybe I'm the only one that likes Emmanuel Wilson. He is rising, you can see here. He's on Seattle, and Emmanuel Wilson just kind of showed that he could take part of the backfield from Josh Jacobs, and he held off all the other running backs and got some nice work and was effective. And so does Seattle maybe trust him to make something happen over there for that team? if they do, he's I think a huge value at 180. So I think between Pacheco and Wilson, that's a toss up. It's not like Pacheco had like crazy draft capital. He's I think a seventh round pick. So you can't really say like Pacheco's got something going on there that Wilson doesn't have going on there. And then even Geno Smith here at 187, I think Geno Smith at 187 probably a better pick. Thinking about like which player is going to score points or more likely to add points to your team. I think Smith is more likely to add points to your team than Pacheco. We also have rising here Keaton, some other running backs, and Keaton Mitchell, DeAndre Swift, and Quinshon Judkins rising also. We'll have to take a look at this and see how much of this is just like a one-day thing or not for Judkins. You can see it's just 1.68% for the week and 2% for the day. So I wouldn't read too much into that one. And I haven't really heard any news. That being said, I guess he's progressing from his ankle injury pretty good, but he's on Cleveland, so you have that going against him. Swift getting a little bump here. And again, this just seems to maybe be something where he was down for a day. He's back up just like normal movement. So I don't know how much I'm going to look into that one a whole lot. Swift can fall in some drafts all the way to the end of the next round. Yeah, like to the sixth round and deep into the sixth. I think it makes more sense to take him there. That being said, there are some people that are big into Swift and think he's a value and should go around higher. So there's some risk, but there's maybe some opportunity there also. Dallas Goedert is rising because they just announced he's signing for another one-year contract with the Eagles. I think 142 is a great price for him there. Go grab him on your teams. You were able to push him around to like 150. I don't know if you're able to push him around to 150 anymore. Jefferson now is solidly in the first round. Unfortunately, I know I've kind of missed the boat on that one. And that every time I'm considering him towards the back half of the first, he would get taken earlier. And now he's going easily easily in the first, probably every single draft. Also, with that, Jordan Addison's going going earlier now too. He was going more like pick 100. At one point in time, if I'm not mistaken. Now he's at pick 99. It maybe was pick 100 on DraftKings, not Underdog. But now he's at pick 91.3. Him and Jefferson are rising because of the Kyler Murray signing. Kyler Murray really couldn't support the other wide receivers, so we'll see how this goes. I do think there's value there in both those players, but if you told me that one of them was the Marvin Harrison Jr. of the team or something like that, it wouldn't surprise me. Kyler Murray just seems to, for the most part, every year kind of disappoint more than do what you hope he can do with his legs and with his arm and everything. Even Hawkinson's rising in drafts, and who knows what's going to play out there. We know what he did for McBride, which wasn't a whole lot, at least in the touchdown category. Here are our fallers, and some of these make a lot of sense. Some of them don't. Let's go over the ones that we can just kind of ignore right now a little bit. Ashton Genty, still a first rounder, you can see here. So maybe just falling a little bit because sometimes kind of Walker's getting pulled up. You can kind of ignore that. Luther Burden falling. I think some of this is just noise. I mean, people get bored a little bit too. Luther Burden falling. I think if he falls, take him. Ignore that one. Any others we can kind of ignore on here a little bit. Brian Robinson falling. If you can get the fall on Brian Robinson, I'd say do that. Definitely that late in the draft. He could get a great landing spot. Even if he goes back with San Francisco as the number 2. At that pick, not a bad pick. Who knows if CMC can make it through another full year again. There's a lot of players on here that we do want to probably let continue falling. Kamani Vidal, he's fallen pretty hard here. Let him keep on falling as they brought in another running back. Bucky Irving, let him fall, keep on falling, maybe get him more in the fourth round at some point in time versus in the third round. They brought in two more running backs. Stephon Diggs still falling because he's a free agent. Um, hot take, maybe. Someone like a Stephon Diggs or a Deebo Samuel, maybe they're some of the biggest beneficiaries of the Waddle trade. Uh, they go to Miami and then they're like the number one of Miami. Not a great spot, but isn't number one on Miami better than like Stephon Diggs being buried on a roster or not having a spot at all? He could make something happen over there for a year. Um, so I'd be taking stuff if you can get Stephon Diggs to fall into like the 140s even, and even like the 150s sometimes. I think I've seen like I'm excited to take him at those spots, and even at 132, not bad. James Connors is continuing to fall. I think he becomes a valuable pick if he falls far enough, and even at 154, totally acceptable pick. Emmett Johnson falling also. Part of these falls are because people are pulling up some of those running backs on the other page, as well as some, bad news for them. Like Connor's got another backfield mate he's got to compete against that's younger. Emmett Johnson, just not a great showing at the combine. So he's just had like some negative news since that. The people who are kind of supporting his ADP are no longer supporting it. Theo Johnson falling, let him fall in like the last round. Let someone else take him earlier. David Njoku falling right now. And one of his exciting landing spots was maybe the Eagles. And it looks like that won't, even if he lands with the Eagles, it's not as exciting of a landing spot, assuming Goddard stays as the starter. Najee Harris, he is now, is that the last round or second to last round there at 225? Harris in the last round, I think, is fine. I don't know how excited I'm about taking him before that. Rice is falling on Underdog. Is he also a value on Underdog, right? Yeah, so he's a value on Underdog, and he's still falling on Underdog. One of those players that I think you want to just get him when he gets into like the fourth round or something like that. I think he is an exciting play. He's a value if he plays, and you'll love that he plays. If he doesn't play and you have too much of him, it's not going to be fun. Braylon Allen falling because they re-signed their number one running back, Breece Hall. Brian Robinson, like where he went over that one. Cam Skattebo falling, and that's still concerned because of his own ankle injury, which I guess the news that's reported, which I don't really, it's not really in your face news. You just kind of hear it from other people. The news is that he's progressing still. So if you can get the fall on Cam Skattebo, I think that's a good one. And Alec Iomanner, he was exciting until Tennessee re-signed Calvin Ridley. So I understand the fall there, and I'd let him fall. Now, Jaylen Waddle just signed with Denver. And what I was doing while I was talking here is I was pulling up the wide receivers that have been in Sean Payton offenses and like been like the best wide receiver on the team each year. And the last 3 years in Denver, it's been Cortland Sutton. And then before that, when he was on the Saints, it was looks like Marquez Callaway 1 year. But before that, it was Michael Thompson, Willie Snead, Marquez Colston, and then Marquez Colston was the number one for, it looks like, for like 7 years or something like that, right? And then Michael Thompson was for like 4 years, and then you had like a Willie Snead, a Marquez Callaway in there. But almost all of these wide receivers, and even the AI here says it as well, are bigger bodied wide receivers, not like a super quick guy. And Jaylen Waddle's more of a super quick guy. I imagine Jaylen Waddle's just going to rise up because whenever there's news, players rise up. But I don't know if Jaylen Waddle should rise up. I think this makes his I couldn't think of a trade that would make his profile even more boom or bust. And I think this one makes his profile, I think it makes him more bust. And I don't know how much more boom it gives him. Uh, I don't know if it, I think it, I don't know if it helps Cortland Sutton at all. It probably definitely hurts the other wide receivers for Denver's like Pat Bryant and Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. I meant like, isn't Jaylen Waddle a better version of some of them as far as being a pretty darn quick receiver? He's more technical route runner wise compared to some of them also. And and you don't draft or like trade for someone like that. I don't know what they traded to get him. Let's see if we can find that one out. But you don't trade for someone like that to not have him play a lot. But Sean Payton does some weird things as far as his player personnel goes. So again, I think there's maybe more risk here than people will probably bake in. Um, let's see. It looks like I don't see what the I don't see here what the compensation was. Okay, a first, a third, and a fourth round pick in this year's draft is what it is for him. I don't think you trade all that to not have him play a significant amount of the snaps. That being said, again, Denver does some weird things. Sean Payton does some weird things. Who does this benefit? I imagine I this is where you wish you had more of their quarterback, Bo Nix, just because they have another good pass catcher on their team. You got to think that it's got to improve the offense a little bit and improve Bo Nix a little bit. Bo Nix can run also, so I think the strategy is you try to grab Bo Nix before he rises. If he rises, I don't think you want to chase Waddle up the board a whole lot, but I think you still want to mix him in where you can, just like you were probably mixing in Cortland Sutton where you can as well. I think you want to hold on the other Denver pass catchers and let them fall, assuming that happens, versus take them at an elevated ADP compared to where they're going to end up at. And then I would also be considering like Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel, like I was saying, who are on here. One of those is a faller. I think Deebo is probably falling too. Um, and having them on your team might make even more sense now because Miami is going to have to get some wide receivers, and maybe their number one is one of those wide receivers for the year or something like that. Or even if it's their number two, while it's not a great landing spot in Miami, not excited about it. But if you get the number one on Miami at that price, thank you very much, I guess, right? And then you just kind of live with it. Hopefully, you get a good amount of scoring weeks because of it. So there's my take right there on the Miami thing and the Denver thing. I'm sure that I'll be proven wrong on some of that. And I'll definitely adjust. Also, haven't really been taking Achane as much, but I don't think this can help him because I think he's already going to get less pass catching work just because of how the offense is going to change with the new head coach, new quarterback. And if the offense is worse, that's going to hurt the running back also. So I wasn't big on Achane. I think I've only drafted him once so far when just he fell to the 12th pick and there wasn't anything else exciting. So I just kind of took him and said, okay, at least I took him once. And maybe that was a bad idea at this point in time. So there you go. Let me know what you think. Tell me why I'm wrong on my Waddle thought process, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.